Hey buddy, it's Scott here from Lawrence Hypnotherapy and welcome back to day 18 of Hypnotherapy Adds Basics. You guys have done so well, you've done so much. Again, reach out if you need help catching up with anything. The basics that I always like to remind people of: get your text right on your posts, your Facebook Lives, your short posts, post everything in your group from now on. The group is the source, and from the group, then share those posts outwards into other groups. There's that ebook that you should get, basically the one called 50 Profitable Facebook Groups. Use that, and it gives you 50 profitable Facebook groups. Join at least 10 so that when you do a post in your group, you can share it out to other groups. And so this is something that should really help you to get the traffic. You guys have done so well. So again, the ebook, the text stuff, the Facebook Lives, the messaging, everything. You guys have done so well. And just making the pace, just getting through this, even if you're catching up, you're where you need to be. So something that always seemed to happen, like when I was a lecturer at the Academy of Hypnotic Science, and I, came, and as soon as I graduated, I asked for a job and they said no. I think you've read the post, like where I talk about, I asked them for a job and they said no. They're like, Scott, you haven't done anything yet. You've graduated with a diploma, so no. And then in my first 6 months of hypnotherapy, I saw 40 clients a week. I was on the Hamish and Andy show in Australia, which is, if you don't know them, they're were Australia's top grossing show. It apparently cost $100,000 of advertising to get the 3 days on the show that I got. And so I managed to do so much. So when I went back to the Academy of Hypnotic Science and I said well, hey, can we chat again about, that whole, I want to be a lecturer at the Academy of Hypnotic Science. The one that, we're in Australia, it was illegal to do hypnosis until the Academy of Hypnotic Science basically did all the court stuff and turned up week after week, month after month for years to legalize hypnosis in Australia. So that academy is part of history, and I got to be the highest paid lecturer there. And so as I got brought in, I was told to teach business because they're going hey, you know what, we teach the therapy and people are saying that there's no business in hypnotherapy. We know there is, and we know that you've got a client base. Could you please teach that stuff? And I did. And it was really weird that one of the things that seemed to happen is that with the students is that they'd kind of go, well, you know what, thanks for teaching me the business stuff, but how do you do the hypnosis? It was kind of like the weirdest thing. It's kind of like they'd studied there, and I know that the course is really good, but they always kind of just want a little bit something else. So kind of like you teach the business, they want the therapy. You teach the therapy, they want the business. And so I basically said, okay, I'll do it. I'm teaching the business now, but I will teach a therapy session on a Tuesday night. I'll come back here for 2 hours. I'll sell tickets for $25. And my first one, I sold 86 tickets to my first ever event. So the room only fit 40-ish people. We had to run it over 2 nights, and I'd never had anything like that before. So let's kind of talk about with running a session, there's some issues that seem to come up for people. They want to get as much success as possible. And to do that, part of it is how you plan your sessions, how you plan your programs, how you structure your program, and how you take notes, how you plan ahead, how, if you've got so many clients, how you keep track of them all. Can I help you with that now? So there's something that we call the 78 box system. So running a 13 session program, if you're doing smoking, 2 sessions is fine. But if you're doing anything else, anxiety, depression, addiction of any kind, weight loss, sports performance, any of these things, please consider at least 6 sessions, maybe 5 or 6, but not 2. I know that we kind of say as hypnotists or hypnotherapists, we can fix everyone in 3 seconds flat, but we know that a lot of stuff takes time in life to come up in order for people to be able to see their problems. Let's say with the car mechanic analogy again. You know how sometimes that you bring your car to the mechanic and it's not making any noise, and then you take it home and it's loud and making all this noise, and you bring it to them nothing's wrong, and then you take it home. So sometimes it takes multiple times of bringing it there for the real problem to be addressed. So that's why it's so good to have a planned out program. So that the 78 box plan is basically, the 78 number comes from 13 sessions and 6 parts of the session. So first, if I can just take you through a 1 hour session. We're not going to take an hour to do it. I just want to take you through the structure of a 1 hour session through the word system, the system acronym. We use this system acronym to do therapy, to do coaching, to do sales, to do all sorts of things. And it's just so good. So the session basically has 2 parts, the first half and the second half. The first half is the counseling, And the second half is the hypnosis. So the SYS in system goes with the counseling, the TEM goes with the hypnosis. Let's go through these one by one. Let's start with the counseling section. So the SYS of counseling, what happens in the first half of the session before you do the hypnosis? Well, the first thing you do is you socialize. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you basically get to know them. Like, how have you been? Have you traveled far? Or with a Zoom call, can you hear me okay? Or on the phone, how are you doing it? But it's kind of like off-topic banter. And there's something that we call the deep and wide, which works really well here. The deep and wide helps you steer and save energy. So deep and wide, deep is when you take one topic, you ask more questions about it. Wide is when you take the topic and you go laterally further and further away till you drift off into just other topics. And they both have a purpose. So if I can give you an example, let's say like a client said like, I got married last week. And so the correct answer there is to go deep when you're socializing, when someone says, I just got married last week. But instead you go, oh, what else has been happening? How's your dog? You're like, what? Hang on, like I just told you I got married last week. And you're going wide? Like, you're drifting off topic, which is a good thing to do sometimes, not in that case though. Or let's say there's like a 15-year-old kid and you ask them, how's school? And they're like, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, like, tell me more about school. And they're just giving you nothing. So you're not really going to build a lot of rapport. You're not going to socialize very well. Going on, or if somebody says like, I've just been through, I just had an argument with my husband. Like, do you want to talk about it? No. Or tell me more about it. No, I really don't want to talk about it. That's a hint to go wide, not deep. So this is your steering wheel, so that you know, like in the first 2 to 5 minutes, how to get as much rapport with somebody as possible by going deep and wide. Deep, stay on topic, go deeper. Tell me more about if you're paying credit to like they just got married or something. And wide, if they're kind of giving you nothing and you need to change topic in order to get them to talk. Once you've got some movement, once you've got some energy, once they seem to like you in the first couple of minutes, you can then move on to the next part, which is the yearn. Why for yearn? What do they want? This question's a little bit more important than what people really give credit to. I know that the world's been taken over with politics and all sorts of things right now, as in like, what team are you on? You left or right? But no one's asking this question. What do they want? What do you want? This question is a much more focused question than pretty much anything you could be seeing on social media or on the media. Because how often, like honestly, how often does this question really get asked? Not kind of like who's to blame for what's going on. If everything was perfect, what would that look like? So let's say like in the sense of a session, because you've just done your socialize, the clients come, this is the most focusing question you can ask. So if you've come to this program, you've come to this thing, if you got exactly what you wanted by the end of it, could you tell me what that looks like? One way we do that is through the 3 R's, where we basically say the first R is kind of the future, it's result. The second R is kind of like the present, it's the reality, like where they're at. The third R is what's in between, what's stopping them from getting from where they are to where they want to be, which is the roadblocks. And so we ask them deep and wide questions on that. So we sort of go like with the deep and wide results. Tell me, like, what do you want? And so then if they give you nothing, go wider, ask them lateral questions. If they tell you something and it's really juicy, go deep, ask them more core questions about it. Then where are they? So what's the gap between where they want to be and where they are? The roadblock, what seems to be stopping you? Is it money stuff? Is it health stuff? Is it relationship stuff? Is it motivation stuff? You get a clear picture of where they want to be. Then the strategy, once you've exhausted those questions and you've got a really, really super clear picture of the person you're talking to, what's the plan? And so you can only make the plan once you've worked out the yearn. And there's so many tools in your toolbox, whether it's different types of therapy. These will start to make a lot more sense once you've got the other part right. So if I'm doing hypnosis for addiction, I say for smoking, I basically talk about nicotine addiction and then habit and then the emotional battle. I'm going to go through habit and emotional battle in this, but let's now go to the hypnosis part. So the second half of the session, what actually happens? Well, you put them into trance. You explore, you go deeper, you do the therapy, then you do the wake up, the plan the next session, and the payment. So it's kind of like it's a really cool structure. So let's say like to do that yearn part, to really, really get it right, the same as like with you guys. Have you noticed like when I'm on the phone to you or when I'm talking to you, other than let's say when I'm doing these videos with you, I go, topic, then I go relate, then I go story, then teach, then offer. I do that. But notice like when I'm on the phone to you, it's a little bit different. I kind of stick to this when I'm on the phone to you guys. Like we do some sort of social chat and stuff, but also define the problem. What do you expect by the end of this program with me? I wanted to know up front. So like, what's your version of success that I know that I'm aiming for it? If you ask me a question, I usually ask you to give me more clarity on what your question is, if that makes sense, so that I know how to answer it. Because if I give you a 10-minute rant on the wrong answer, you're not going to like that. And so that this is a mistake that pretty much all adults, including myself, can fall for. But it's a really focusing sheet to have like, make sure that this is happening. Make sure we know like, what does the client want by the end of the program? What do they want by the end of the program? Then what have they tried before? Because you either, if you're going to just try the same thing as before, it's not going to seem good. So if you're going to do the same thing as before, they need to know that there's a reason why yours is different but the same as before. Maybe it's a different style for the same approach, or it's completely different. What's worked best so far? So you know, like that, some success mapping. What's really going well for them, and why haven't they achieved the result yet? Maybe it just wasn't time. But kind of be sort of gentle with that question. Don't make it like it's Spanish Inquisition. Like, don't insult them with the question. Just sort of ask, like, you know, what sort of like maybe prevented you from getting there up until this point. But these are your coaching questions that are so powerful in that if you can get a clear map of where they want to be and how they want to work with you, you're just going to gain so much rapport and get so far with them. So let's go into emotions before we go into habit. This is a bit of a roadmap for me that I like to use. Like that when it comes to physics, you've got like a heavy stuff and light stuff, you've got big stuff and small stuff. Psychology borrows a lot of those same philosophies or same kind of measurements and scales. So if we could say emotions, the brain is driven by chemicals and electricity. We're steering the ship through pain and pleasure. So pleasure and pain. And then there's time. So there's past, present, and future. So let's kind of look at some of the conditions that people can come to you with and what they look like. So with past, pleasure, nostalgia, things were better. But then they got stuck and no vision and became complacent. So that if they've got nostalgia, you can kind of see what some of the symptoms will be. But let's say pain and past, loss, grief, depression, guilt. It kind of makes sense how that those belong in those areas. And it gives them a bit of a map as to like what's going on for them. If they're kind of more in the present, say like with the pleasure. So this entire thing is not about like when things are going right because they've come to you for help. This is often what's going wrong for them so you can help them to get right again. If they're in pleasure in the present, it could be great. They're in pleasure in the present. Who doesn't want to be in pleasure in the present? But what if they're doing it in a way that costs them their future? Through addiction, habit, substances, lifestyle issues. You want to be able to help them with that. Then pain present are things like frustrations, insomnia, pain, fatigue, anger, bullying, things that are happening now. And then the future. We could say that the pleasure future, goals, money, health, and relationships. That's what everyone wants. That's pretty much things people buy or buy paths to or solutions if they go wrong. And then future pain, fears, phobias, anxiety, disappointment. That they're worried about those things. So like, as you can sort of see that like depression's in the past and anxiety's in the future. So this is kind of like a map that we use. So when we're kind of like educating a client, we kind of like let them know that it all sort of does fit into pain, pleasure, and time. This doesn't fix the problem for them, but it gives them a map as to how the problem's playing out for them. So it's like whenever they're thinking about the future, that's when their negative program starts. Or whenever they're thinking about the present, isn't like how they gain pleasure. That's when their negative program starts. There's needs that aren't being met that they're meeting through addiction. Now let's look at language and habits. So habits and language to me are almost the same thing. Because there's this conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind, like the brain's pretty small in a way. It's like it's only about the size of a fist. So I can do that with my hand. I can do really, really cool things like with this. Like I can, I just love this thing. It's awesome. But the brain's only about the size of a fist. And the middle of it, a lot of it's blood. And the frontal lobe is the very small part at the front of the brain, which is a genius, but it's so small that it gets tired and the midbrain takes over with habit. So the subconscious, like say if you've got a long, tall field of grass, you want to get from one side to the other, so you're pushing it with your hands and you're stumping it with feet that I don't seem to have in this, so I'm going to pretend my legs are feet. It's just easy that if you keep moving through that path and you want to get back, it's easy just to, if you want to get back to use the path you've already made, and the brain's competing against itself for size. So the brain can only work at that size because you have habits, because your client has habits. So the habits aren't always checking with logic. The brain doesn't know words like not, don't, stop, and quit. It's like if I said, can you please not think about the number 3? Thinks about the number 3 anyway. If I say, don't think about your ex, damn it, you said my ex, now I'm thinking about my ex. So it doesn't get negations. It gets pictures, sounds, and feelings. So that if you're going to get a client to create a habit, the hypnosis that you do and the counseling that you should do should kind of educate that the solutions in the language, the pictures, sounds, and feelings. If you ask a 5-year-old girl to draw something, she'll draw it. Like, you say, can you draw me a puppy? She'll draw a puppy. If you ask her, can you draw me not a puppy? That's not a clear instruction. She doesn't know what you're talking about. She can't create an image. The same as like, what if there's like a 6-year-old girl, it's time for bed, and you say like, don't have those nightmares that make you wet the bed about zombies and vampires. She's then thinking about zombies and vampires. So no matter what the habits are that they're applying, what you need is positive picture, sounds, and feelings of the outcome. Because if they can't even picture, if they can't even hear, if they can't even feel and create that image in their head and that sound and feeling in their head of what the future could be, then they're not going to be able to build the habits. And you'll notice that there's a lot of bad things happening with pictures. Sometimes you need to interrupt pictures. Pictures are too close with an anxiety. You need to imagine, like with the anxiety, pictures being too close, help them to imagine moving that picture further away for space and distance. Or with the sounds, get them to like quiet it, get it to change the sound, get it to change the tone, get it to replace the sound with something else or to break the pattern of the sound. And the feelings, like the stomach stops moving when they breathe. Like the stomach inflates with the in-breath and deflates with the out-breath. The feeling gets mapped in the body. If they can learn to kind of like move their stomach again rhythmically, the heart rate can start to go down again. So that the main point about this is that the subconscious can't process logic. It cares about the sensory stuff. So that when you're going to like help the client with hypnotherapy, the more positive sensory that you can stack, the better. The negative sensory is really just there for getting an understanding of how they are currently. It's good for marketing with relate, but you're not trying to relate so much when you're doing the hypnosis. And then to plan out your program. So let's say that if your program's about anxiety. So what you can do is like say, well, one problem has many problems. If you're helping them with anxiety, then come up with like, what's another 12 issues that anxiety can cause? What are some secondary issues? Is it causing, say, with insomnia, is the anxiety stopping them from sleeping well? Is it causing obesity, depression, addiction? So are they using substances? Does it create a sense of grief and pain? Does it cause extra phobias? Or if your topic is phobias, put the phobias at the top and then say the other sessions can be around you call everything else the sub-points, if that makes sense. Because the phobias can also have insomnia. Or if insomnia is the thing you help people with, phobias and anxiety can be the sub-points. Does that make sense? So whatever your core program topic is, everything else that's related can become the names of the other 12 sessions. Or if you're only doing 6 sessions, you can have the core program session and the other sessions, the other 5 sessions, can be other of the many problems, the sub-problems that occur. So once you've written them, what can they be? I want you to actually write a list of 13 problems that your one client could have. And then I want you to come up with 13 strategies to fix those problems. Now you've got a program, if that makes sense. So it'll look a little bit like this. So I'm going to skip ahead because it just sort of helps to look at it this way. You write 13 strategies, and then you've got like these 13 lines that go problem 1, solution 1, problem 2, solution 2, if that makes sense. So then we talked about habits, we talked about language, we talked about logic, how that the brain doesn't understand don't, or the subconscious doesn't understand don't, but it does get feelings. There's the feelings, the need for survival, love, status, and identity. We actually break this up into the ABCD. So achievement, breaks, connection, and discovery. So achievements, people need energy and clarity. That's basically one of the things they need. Their strategy to get energy and clarity could be to worry. That could be a phobia. They feel like, that if they could worry enough, that's going to sort of like prime them to fight hand-to-hand combat with everything that's coming their way. Or that 50 coffees or alcohol or Coke that they're having is going to help them face the world. So that might be one of their strategies to get achievement sorted. Then breaks is when like they need, like there's too many things going on. They need some space. What people need is boundary and communication. They need everyone to sort of back off. Their strategy might be to smoke. Their strategy might be to be distant in their relationships. We need to teach positive strategies, how to take breaks from people, how to communicate boundaries. Connection, people need humans. That if you lock someone up in solitary confinement, or the SHU, what they call, the solitary housing units, like in Orange is the New Black, if you've seen that show, people go insane. People, if they're locked up with no human contact, they actually end up with mental illness. So people will do anything for connection. But the best way to get connection is to have topics in common. You don't look for people when you want people. You look for topics that you love, and the people fill the void, if that makes sense. Like I had a client that was an old Jewish lady who said that she can't get any friends. She's 80. Most of her friends and family had passed away. And I'm going, well, can you get more friends? No, I'm too old. Nobody likes me. Nobody cares about me. Okay, well, what are you interested in? It's like, well, I'm a Jewish lady and I love religion. So we basically asked her to seek, Jewish churches, synagogues, so that she actually got to go to those places, and then she made these friends. So in the next session, she's like, Scott, you know what? I've made a couple of friends. They drive me. So it's kind of the topics come first. Discovery is about reward. Discovery is about variety. People need new and different things. Sometimes people do it with food. Sometimes they do it with substance. Sometimes they do it with drama. But if all four of these needs are met, then generally they're not going to have as many problems in their life. So if a client's coming to see that's not happy, if they're not achieving, so like survival is like achievement and breaks together. Love is like connection and discovery together. Status is like achievement and connection together. Identity is like breaks and discovery together. It's like that if somebody's having an identity issue, they're likely to smoke a joint because they want breaks to reward themselves, to find out who they are. If somebody's having like a status issue, it's like they want to be seen achieving something, they're likely to have cocaine or ecstasy or something that's like a performance drug. If someone's having trouble with survival, they're likely to be having coffee because they want to achieve, but not yet they need a break, so they need their morning coffee. If somebody's like, say, the love side, that's kind of gone, alcohol might be a popular drug because they want connection and reward so they can sort of go out and socialize and see what's happening in the world. If that makes sense. The same with anxiety and phobias, that they're using negative strategies to get what they want. External strategies that people need, things for money, health, and relationships. With money, some of the strategies people need is cut out frivolous spending, charge more if they're in business, advertise more, ask for a promotion if they're not in business, spend on assets, not liabilities, as in spend on things that gain you money. So it could be like, a house deposit, not alcohol, and save at least 10% of your money. These are strategies. Find out if people are doing these things. With health, here's the order of things that people need to be doing. So 1, breathe, sleep, drink, eat, exercise. In the 80s, they taught this backwards. They used to say that, exercise will fix everything in health. Now we know that breathing comes first. You need to do that well. Sleeping is then the next most urgent. Then drink water, then eat, clean, and exercise. Find out how your client's going with these things. Relationship. Take turns instead of like one trying to chase and the other trying to leave at the same time. Seek professional advice. Cut out contempt. Contempt is the number one thing that creates like the irresolvable nature of a relationship. When someone has contempt for the other, when they've gone like, look, I'm just completely disgusted with that person, that's where the relationship's basically irreconcilable. But in most relationships, they haven't even agreed on the severity of the issue. Like one person says the relationship's 90% damaged, the other one's like, oh, it's only 10% damaged. Get them to talk about that, so the one that thinks it's only 10% damaged goes, oh, okay, something's actually wrong here. Discuss the severity of the concern. Discuss money, sex, and children. These are popular topics that cause issues. Discuss a future vision. Discuss health, values, love language, the Mars and Venus stuff if you've read like the John Gray books. Spend time together and give each other space. Learn to let go. Ask how they're going with these things. Then, in planning a program, like if that's sort of enough content to sort of like if you've got your central topic, use some of what I've talked to you about to plan your 5, 6, 7, or 13 sessions, and then it'll look like this. So here's a problem that they're going through. The stuff I just talked to you about could be a strategy. So it could be that the problem is that they're smoking. The solution is they need to like basically shift their language from trying to quit to actually sort of achieving their needs. Like the next time they need a break, they have a break in a positive way. So like one might be a session on how to achieve positive breaks, if that makes sense. And then you get your 78 box plan. So just as an example, so you can kind of see how useful this would be in therapy. If let's say you're halfway through and you want to look back to see what happened in the other sessions and you've written notes in these boxes, even if you've only got, let's say, 6 sessions and you're up to kind of 3 or 4, you can look back and see what happened, and you can look forward at the strategies that you're planning to do next. It's like, in a way, session 3 is the first session when you can reasonably apply any research you do. Because on session 1, you talk and you get to know them. Session 2, they trust you enough to tell you what the problem was. Then you can go away and do research after session 2 to actually deliver a solution on session 3. So that's why, like, only doing 2 sessions doesn't really work sometimes for people, because it takes them time to open up to you. So the system acronym again: socialize. How are you? Did you travel far? Please sit. Sign the terms and conditions. The yearn. What do you expect by the end of the session? What do you want by the end of the program? What have you tried before? What's worked so far? What has stopped you from getting a result so far? What's in your way? The strategy. What habit needs to change? What needs aren't met? So we talked about habits with sensory language. We talked about needs with the ABCD. Explain the framework of this step. Draw diagrams. Tell a story that relates to the framework. Ask questions to confirm that they comprehended you. Then the trance. So we've got this acronym for hypnotizing people. Get the book called How to Hypnotize an Addict. It's brilliant. Get the course as well. So we've got free links for that in the resource page. Talk, relaxation, atmosphere, narcosis, change and exit. I don't want to go into that in this video because the course is a full, complete course that we filmed for you. Explore, establish a connection with the subconscious mind. Talk about an unmet need. Describe the meeting that need in a healthy way under hypnosis. Describe a habit that needs to change. Describe the replacement habit. Future pace, past pace, future pace, past pace. So there's a rhythm for the healing, and then test for subconscious compliance. And then wake up, schedule next session, and the payment. So you can sort of see that as you follow those 6 steps and you follow problem 1, solution 1, problem 2, solution 2, even if you just put together a 6-step plan, this is a brilliant way to take notes. It's a brilliant way to plan what's happening next. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of this program. We've only got a couple of days left. You guys have done so well. Tomorrow we're getting into a story structure. Like if you want to tell better stories in order to coach better, if you want to tell better stories to market better, this is something I really want you to take a look at tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video.